Scoob is the latest adaptation of Scooby and the Gang. If you're unfamiliar with Scooby and the Gang, it's a talking dog, his friends, and they solve mysteries. They don't rewrite history, but there is gold in this movie, so DuckTales? Woohoo! But it's also from the director of Flintstones and WWE Stone Age SmackDown. And yikes, when I saw that, I was really afraid. He's also directed a few of the direct-to-DVD Scooby-Doo animated movies that are of varying quality. Sometimes they're good, and sometimes they're really not very good. I'll get into spoilers here in a little bit, but a brief rundown. If you're unfamiliar with Scoob and the Gang, well, you probably should watch the original cartoon. I love the original cartoon. Obviously, I was not alive when it came out, but I love watching it in reruns. From there, the Scooby-Doo movies weren't exactly always great. I'm talking the ones where Batman and Robin were there, and the Super Friends style and stuff like that. And even the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, and just various others. Pup Named Scooby-Doo had a catchy theme song. That's where I kind of started to fall off of, not really caring for it. And then, the live-action movies, which had some good casting, and the first one was okay, the second one wasn't all that great, and then, unfortunately, the movies have kind of just dipped in quality since. So I wasn't all that excited when I saw this, but I figured, okay, it's on early access, theaters are closed right now, I'll pay the money, why the hell not? Because I do love me some Scooby-Doo, and I do love me some nostalgia. This is a movie that starts as an origin story. It starts at the beginning, very good place to start, with Shaggy and Scoob as kids. And, Scoob's a pup and everything. And they meet, they form a bond, and then they meet Fred, Daphne, and Velma one Halloween night, and then they foil a ghost plot and decide to become crime-solving kids that, leads them to them being crime-solving young adults. And then something happens that basically separates them, and you have Shaggy and Scooby in one part, and Fred, Daphne, and Velma in another part. So, the only con that I really have about this movie is the animation style. At times, it doesn't look bad, but it is kind of jarring. It doesn't really work for me. There are times it looks cool, and there are times it almost looks cheap. This almost looks like it could have been something that was just put out on Netflix. And it's not like the animators didn't try, but it was like the budget was very, very, was smaller than I think that they originally anticipated. Or maybe they just wanted to try a new style and it didn't really work. Because, again, there are just times I didn't like it and there were times I didn't mind it. But that was the biggest con that I had about this. From the very beginning, it hits nostalgia with music. It has some music from the 90s. It starts off with California Love, and you see Shaggy and Scoob form their friendship, and they stay away kind of from the jokes about them always being hungry because they're always high. It doesn't quite go like the live action movies did, because that's why Shag and Scoob were always eating, because they were always high. And the group, you have Amanda Seyfried, who voices Daphne. You have Gina Rodriguez, who voices Velma. Shaggy is William Forte. Frank Welker is, Shaggy's William Forte, and Frank Welker, is the voice of Scooby. And then Zac Efron is actually the voice of Fred. Now, this was a lot to try and, take in, because I was like, Zac Efron, and he actually wasn't that bad. And Ken Jeong, who he's the Asian guy from The Hangover, by the way, in case you don't know. He voices Dynamite. There's a lot of nostalgia here. There's the Blue Falcon, who's a superhero to Shaggy and Scooby from when they were very young, and he's voiced by Mark Wahlberg. And you also have a villain, Dick Dastardly, who is voiced by Jason Isaacs, easy for me to say, from all the way back in The Patriot. Remember The Patriot? He was the villain in The Patriot, that guy. This movie at times actually isn't all that bad. The plot is basically Dick Dastardly, and it's hard not to laugh at the name, is trying to get these 3 Cerberus skulls to open up the gates of the underworld because he wants to get some treasure. That's basically the plot right there. And Scooby is the key. So with everybody separated, it's easy to pick them off and use them against each other and test their friendships. And that's where a lot of this movie, that's what a lot of the base of this movie is, testing friendship, especially between Shaggy and Scooby. Because Scoob is suddenly seen as this hero who is, the key to this. He's seen as important, and Shaggy feels left in the dust. The problem with this movie is it tries to make it where the characters are in danger, and none of the characters feel like they're ever in danger. There's no sense of, okay, something's going to happen. I get there's a PG element here, and you don't want to scare the kids too much, but it does feel like a very bargain basement way of advancing the plot. So maybe it's just age, maybe it's just the fact that I didn't, that like, the animation just kept taking me out of it. Like, the animation style really is what it was. I just kept getting taken out by it. The cast was actually pretty damn good. The cast was, well, like, played their parts well. Particularly like Amanda Seyfried. Or Seyfried, I always forget how to say that. I've loved her since Mean Girls, and she's had an up and down career. Loved her in Jennifer's Body, and there is some heart to this. This reminds me a lot of how Sonic the Hedgehog is. You're going to be, if you're a fan of it, you're going to love it or hate it, and if you're not a fan of it, you're probably not even going to enjoy it. So if you're a Scooby-Doo fan, one of you have little kids, the kids will love it. The kids will absolutely goddamn love it. But if you're an adult, the nostalgia will only last so long, and that's kind of where I was at here, because the nostalgia started to really kind of wane on me a little bit, because I was like, okay, we get it. They even had like the opening credits like in a reinvention with the animation style, which was kind of cool, but it was also kind of like, okay, now we're just trying to pander to the fans. It isn't a bad movie, I will say that much, but it isn't necessarily great. If you have kids, this will entertain the kids. But as an adult, you might be bored by it. Some may not be. Some may actually really enjoy this. But in the end, I was kind of a little bit bored with it. It was kind of what it was, and they had a sequel hook at the end. But now I'm going to get into spoilers, guys. So if you got kids, they may enjoy this, and it'll be a nice way to sit them down in front of the TV and have them enjoy it. But now I'm going to get into spoilers. So if you're still here, 3, 2, 1, and go. So, okay, you got the plot. It's all about testing the friendship of Shaggy and Scooby from their early days, and they foil the plot with the ghost. It turns out to be this guy is just stealing electronics and hiding in a haunted house. And then later they need an investor to take Money Inc. to the next level, and they actually have Simon Cowell there. And he's like, well, I'll invest in the three of you, but I can't with these bumbling idiots. And it separates Shaggy and Scooby from the pack, because they feel like, okay, well, if you don't need us, we're just going to go here. They go to a bowling alley, and then it turns out that there are these, that the bowling pins aren't what they seem. They're actually robots that are, the henchmen of Dick Dastardly. Easy for me to say. He's the one that had the dog Rizum Razum, Remember that dog? Rizum Razum. Remember that dog? He's that guy, in case you don't know. And it does hit the nostalgia with the Blue Falcon, Dynamite, and stuff like that, because they eventually do rescue them when they almost get taken out in the bowling alley. And then from there, you get the whole thing where Scooby has loyalty to Shaggy, but he also wants to be the hero. He likes the fact that he's accepted as this, as this new superhero that he never thought he could be. The problems with this movie, besides the animation style, are ones that I said a little bit earlier. It doesn't have an element where you feel like anybody's in danger. I mean, yeah, you maybe don't want to scare the kids, but you also don't want to just placate to them. It just feels like it's just kind of there, is my main issue here. In the end, you have this, you have these three Cerberus skulls, and you have the Cerberus formed, and Scooby's paw is the key, because it turns out that Scoob is the last descendant of Alexander the Great's dog. And they open up the gate because, Dick Dastardly pushed his little dog in there to get this gold, but he couldn't get back through there, and he missed his dog. Well, then the gate's open. Then he sees the dog, and he gets the dog back, and they get some gold. And then Cerberus is released while all this is going on. And the only way to close the gate is for either, the man or the dog to be on the opposite side of the gate, because it's a way to close the gate. Their friendship would never end, but they would have to separate. It's like if their friendship is strong enough, maybe they could come back. And, oh yeah, by the way, Shaggy locks himself in the gates of the underworld, and then is literally back 5 minutes later. Maybe not even 5 minutes later. I think it was about 3. That might get to kids. It didn't really get to me necessarily. I mean, it's like, again, I like the older cartoons. This just felt like a stretched out cartoon. I didn't ultimately care a ton for it, but I didn't hate the movie. So they had a sequel hook, and, it seems like maybe we're going to get this. I don't know if we're going to get Scoob 2 Electric Boogaloo, but ultimately the movie isn't that bad. I'll say C+. It's fine, but it's not a great movie. I wasn't going to hate on it. It's like I expected to hate Sonic the Hedgehog, and I didn't. And I didn't hate this movie, but I like this a little less than Sonic the Hedgehog, because Sonic the Hedgehog had more of a breeze to it. This just felt like after a while they were doing this stuff just to kind of advance it, and it just felt, I don't know, it felt like a very flimsy plot stretched out to about 90 minutes. That being said, the cast is fine, and the animation at times looks good, the drawings look good, but the style just ultimately took me out of it. And that's part of the reason I actually would have dropped it. Had it been better animation, like they had in the credits or better drawings, I might have actually graded this even half a grade, maybe a full grade higher. Because it was close, had it been a little bit more streamlined, but just something about it just didn't look right. So anyway, that's all I gotta say. Agree, disagree with what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retland. I'll see you soon.